conceptual perspective to view things. People talk about a desire to be successful. All of the elements.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. I hope that everything is going well on your end. I am not going to be before you long. Somewhere a little later in this day, I plan on doing a live stream to further discuss what's going on in the Ahmaud Arbery case. But right now, I want to talk about something that's sort of sliding under the radar, but I know how it will likely play out. If you've been paying attention to social media, then you've probably already seen that Diddy, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy, or whatever name and moniker you still recognize him as, has sort of uh, self-proclaimed himself as the guarder of the black vote, quote unquote. He has sent a message to primarily the Democratic Party and the Democratic presidential candidate, which is primarily Joe Biden at this time, even though it has not been officially declared by the Democratic Party. That he has sent a message that he is holding the black vote hostage, and that without some type of exchange for the black vote, there won't be a giving of the black vote in large blocks, because he is holding the black vote hostage for something tangible. Uh, Now, before I get to him specifically, I want to speak to the idea of getting something tangible for your vote. I have said this for years, and I've had a bunch of people get real upset with me because of nothing less than shallow thinking and a misunderstanding about political strategy and political science, and a misapplication of value and understanding as it pertains to the vote in particular. What do I mean by this? Well, anytime you start talking about voting in the black community, there is going to be a group of people who are going to try to guilt you into voting because it is the thing to do, because people, quote unquote, died so that you could have the right to vote. And so that by its own sense of purpose should compel you to vote, no matter what the situation, no matter what the circumstances, regardless of who the candidates are. It stresses the importance and value of the vote, but it also suggests that regardless, you need to give your vote to somebody. Now, those two are not what is the word I'm looking for? Inclusive, naturally and mutually inclusive to, are connected to one another. And here's why, and I've said this for years. The vote has value when you maintain control of how it's spent. If we handle our votes in the same way we handle our money, we will end up in the same situation that we are in. We will end up in the same situation politically that we are in socioeconomically. And what is that? We randomly spend our money. We give no value to the direction we spend our money, how we spend our money, and what we invest our money in. We tend to take on a consumerized mindset that leads us to buying things that hold no value, create no value, and appreciate in value. We tend to buy things that lose their value quickly. We tend to invest in things that depreciate rapidly, and it ends up with us not accumulating or acquiring any type, what the world, any type of wealth. And so that's what happens socioeconomically, politically. If you continue to invest your vote in something that does not produce a return for you, you are diminishing its value. You're, in essence, by your own actions, declaring that it doesn't really have that much value to you, because you're pretty much giving it and putting out and putting it on anything and anybody based on a feeling. There's no return on your investment. See, when you start asking politicians for tangibles, things that you can measure their promises by, not the smooth talk, not the they're racist and we're not racist and we care about you speeches and rhetoric, but hey, here are the policies that we are putting into place to protect you. Here are the laws that we are putting up for vote that will give you access to the things that will empower and protect you. Here are specific strategies that we will implement during our term that will benefit your group specifically, because you need to have your own footing. Anything that benefits the entire country is not going to give blacks the footing they need to catch up, because everybody's moving forward. It maintains the status quo. However, when you sit up and say, well, we're going to create some policies that give blacks access to business loans. We're going to create some policies that will protect blacks against random acts of violence specifically. We're going to give blacks some protection that protects them against police brutality and the shooting of unarmed black men and women. We are going to take some action that's going to focus on adequately, efficiently, and effectively educating, which means to prepare and empower young black males and females beyond the attainment of academic skills. And this is how we are going to do it. Those are tangibles. And see, we've never ever gotten any tangibles. We've never gotten anything, but we're going to look out for you. We're going to take for you. We're on your side and they're not. And we're going to come visit you at your church. We're going to hold and kiss a few babies. We're going to talk about a few points, and we're going to deliver nothing. And that is what has happened. And that's why 150 plus years after we received our emancipation, quote unquote, at least historically, we have not gained any ground as far as it concerns wealth building. We have not gained any positioning as it pertains to true political power. We are still at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. And so we must say that we have not made any true allies within the political structure. We have been manipulated and mishandled. So when we talk about tangibles, we must understand that the vote only has value when you hold it and maintain that you will only spend it on something of value. If you'll spend it on anything solely because you feel that's all the options you have to spend it on, it loses its value, because they control your options as far as who's in front of you to spend it on. You have to say, no, you will not win because of me if you don't give me a reason to spend this most valuable asset that I claim. See, it only remains valuable when I control on who I spend it on and what I get in return for it. Again, without a return, it has no value. They've been convincing you to spend it for years, since all of the voting rights bills and everything came, and we felt we've got power now because they can't stop us from voting. And yet we've been voting many times with massive turnouts and no results. And we always get blamed when something doesn't go the way that the Democratic Party wants it to go. It's always the blacks' fault because we didn't turn out. We only make up 13% of the population. It's never, ever actually our fault, because we don't have enough votes in and of ourselves to move anything, any direction, except for in a very, 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 very close race. We make up 13% of the population, and you got to remember, of that 13%, not all are eligible to vote. And we have the largest group of males who are negatively impacted by criminal records and incarceration and being enabled to vote while incarcerated or while on parole. So, and in Florida, up until about a year or two ago, even after you were off parole, you couldn't vote. So you got to think about how much do we really impact it. But if we're going to get in the game, we still need to know the value of what we hold. So yes, we do need to hold our vote hostage. My issue isn't with what he said. My issue is with the fact that he has deemed himself the caregiver of the black vote. And what my problem is there's no history of him doing anything of any great magnitude to empower the black community. He's close to being a billionaire. He's worth over $900 million last I checked. Uh, and that means that his reality is different than 99% of blacks in this country. What he has access to is much different than the average black person. How he lives his life and how he's impacted by the system is much different than 99% of the people. So that means his interests are different than 99% of the people he is proclaiming he is representing without having a track record of doing so. Now, if he had a track record of saying, I can see beyond where I'm at and I can relate because I came from there and I've stayed connected and this is what I've done in the community here, 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 and here, in a way that wasn't about benefiting me or serving my specific interests and agenda, but just solely about empowering my people. If he could sit up and say, I've started credit unions in several major cities. I have gotten together and funded Afrocentric based education for young black youth. I have sponsored programs that reduce recidivism for incarcerated black males. If he can show a track record where he has actually taken the resources he has at his disposal and done something that is on a grand scale impacting the black community, then you can sit up and say, okay, maybe we want to get behind you. Maybe we want to allow you to stand in. My thing is, whatever he's doing, he's getting ahead of the curve. He's jumping in on a trend. He's taking what he has predicted is going to be something that's of a movement. He's heard ADOS say it. He's heard B1 say it. He's heard Foundational Blacks say it, that we are going to withhold our vote until you table some of the things that are important to us, until you table reparations, until you table mass incarceration, until you table serial forced displacement, until you table miseducation, until you deal with some of the things that are important to us. We are not going to give you our vote. We are no longer those that you can sit up and dance in front of, play a saxophone in front of, do a couple of quotes using some black phrases or cultural terms, and think that we're going to be excited about it and vote for you. So he knows that there's a movement. He knows that ADOS has traction, whether you are on the ADOS bandwagon or not. He knows that B1 has traction. He knows Foundational Blacks have traction. He knows that there are some black people speaking truth to power on fronts that carry weight and validity, and he's trying to position himself to benefit from it. We need to call it what it is. We need to be aware of it, and we cannot allow that to happen. We've got to hold ours accountable as much as we're holding them accountable as well. If you're going to declare yourself to be a leader in the black community, you got to have some engagement. You've got to have boots on the ground. You've got to have a direct connection to the people you're saying you're representing, because most of the people you're saying you're representing can't relate to you. and you can't relate to them. And so how can you be a leader of people you can't relate to? You don't have the validity. You don't have the juice or the pull or the power to declare what we're going to do with our vote. You don't have any blood or sweat in the game that way. Matter of fact, you have a reputation of a grifter, a reputation of someone who has hustled and hurt and caused harm to everybody you come in contact with. And for me to sit up and say it, it actually has to be something, because I believe anybody can make a mistake, and I believe nobody's perfect. I'm not out to drag people through the mud or rip their doors to their closets open so skeletons can fall out, because I have my own. I'm a long way from perfect. I'm still working on me. I'm still trying to become that thing I desire. I'm still trying to measure up to the man my great-grandfather was as he taught me. So I'm real slow to go after black men. But when I see somebody and everything that has ever been said is people end up on the bad end of the table when they're dealing with you. And there's nobody to counter it. There's nobody to say, well, man, he was right by me. Everybody, after it's over and done, says that was a bad deal. And yet you want to say you represent us. Who have you sat down with that has their hand on the pulse of the black community that said it was okay for you to do that? Who have you sat down with and that's actually dealing with the pain and the heartache and the hurt of black men dying? How many families have you visited and you have the means to provide some relief for the pain they're feeling because of the loss of their loved ones? How many black men in prison have you sat down with or have you visited? The shame of it all is you're letting a white chick outperform you in that area. And I'm talking about that Kardashian chick. The thing is, I've got people that I've been writing letters for years. That chick is actually taking a group of black lawyers who are in the background and doing work and using her name to make things happen. That shit makes me sick. We need to be doing that. We have people with names bigger than hers who aren't willing to step out and do something. You and Jay at the top of the list. You know, whoever she is and whatever she's done, my thing is, why is she the one moving like this? Hell, her husband ain't even doing it. My thing is, regardless of her motives, whatever, she's in there doing something that we should be doing. So when I look at the incarcerated individuals, you're definitely not representing us there. All of the programs that I'm dealing with school districts around the country in trying to represent the black population and the black demographic within the public school system, your name hasn't popped up once. And I'm not saying that people don't move in silence. I think that you should move in silence most of the time, unless you need the exposure to get the support. But you don't need the pats on the back. My thing is, I don't see it. And my thing is, we as a people better not get caught up in this celebrity worship that we tend to get caught up in. And because Diddy is saying it, we riding along with him, and then he takes us down a pathway that damages the credibility of the stances that we're taking. The credibility of our fight is so important right now. We don't need anybody that's going to damage the credibility of the struggle. We don't need anybody that's got a personal agenda, that's not going to look at the long-term impact of what we're doing now. I'm just sitting up watching it. Not a lot of people are going to say it because not a lot of people want to deal with that. Plus, we have this thing about living vicariously through those who we deem to be successful. And we'll go to the darn mat form all the way to them. Shit, look how long it took for us to get off R. Kelly. And again, I'm not dragging or tearing the brother down, but he obviously had problems and nobody wanted to say anything about it until he could no longer fund whatever he was funding for them. Too many people let that shit slide for too long because they were benefiting from his celebrity, from his wealth. And it didn't become a problem until things started to dry up and he couldn't pay people off and he couldn't do favors. And then all of a sudden he became expendable, and we put him into that cancel culture that we like to do when things don't measure up based on how we feel. Instead of having a standard of engagement, that should be a common standard of how we're going to handle our children, a common standard of how we're going to handle our women, a common standard of how we move economically, a common standard how we move politically, a common code of conduct within the community that we enforce with vigor. That's how it needs to be operated. So I'm asking Diddy, who appointed you the leader of the black community? Who appointed you the guardian of the black vote? Who appointed you as somebody that can go out and stand up and step up and make demands on our behalf? Who have you sat down with? Who's been putting boots on the ground and who has connectivity to the black community? I want to know. And on that note, look, I'm going to get off here. Don't forget, support the work we're doing at the Odyssey Project. Hit the like button. I'm out of here.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in with a little special announcement. For those who have followed me for any stretch of time, you know, outside of the businesses that I run, like Myriad Business Solutions, the Visionetics Institute, Odyssey Media Group, I also do a great deal of work inside of the inner city communities in Houston, Dallas, and other areas. I'm asking now, as we push a fundraiser, that you support what the Odyssey Project is doing in the inner cities, especially with programs like Black Men Lead, which is a rite of passage initiative, and Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters, which is a program focused on helping young girls, but boys as well, suffering from childhood sexual abuse, rape, molestation, domestic abuse, absentee fatherhood, and so many other things. The information will be in the box. Thank you.